Call your first witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. State call Ashley Boswell.
Microphone under the shield.
I believe you can move the mic more if you need to, up or back. Thank you. Good morning, ma'am. I understand you may be uncomfortable, so if you need to adjust anything with the face shields and face masks, let me know. Similarly, if you don't understand something I ask, just let me know as well, okay? What is your name?
Ashley Boswell.
And where are you from, Miss Boswell?
I live in Licking, but I'm originally from Denver, Missouri.
Okay, and is Licking in Texas County?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How old are you?
26.
How big is your family, your immediate family?
I'm the oldest of 5 kids.
And what are their siblings' names?
There's Brittany, Sammy, William, and Joey.
And what's Joey's full name?
Joseph Matthew Steinfeld Jr.
Okay. And how about your parents? What are your parents' names?
Amber Faye Steinfeld and Joseph Matthew Steinfeld Jr. Senior.
Senior, okay. Well, let's talk about your sibling Joseph Steinfeld Jr., excuse me. What did he go by?
He went by Joey.
Okay. And how long had he went by Joey? His whole life?
His whole life.
Okay. What was his date of birth, do you know?
September 9th, 1999.
How did you typically communicate with Joey as he got a little older into his teenage years?
We communicated through Facebook or text messages, depending on if he had a phone or not.
And when he had a phone, did he have a single number or multiple numbers?
It depends on where he was at. Sometimes he had a single number, sometimes he had just Facebook, but that's not what we could get hold of him.
So Facebook Messenger, right?
Facebook Messenger was nothing.
When was the last time you saw Joey?
On September 1st.
You actually physically saw him?
Yes.
And when was the last time you actually physically communicated with him?
December 1st.
Okay. And how long after that before you became concerned?
I tried contacting him a week before his birthday. Because me and him were always cute. We were always close. We always talked all the time. And I knew something wrong because he never texted me. I was like, what's going on? This ain't normal. Why?
I'm going to ask you to stop it.
Oh. I never heard from him, so I was like, what's going on? What is he at? This ain't normal. Me and him communicate on a daily basis. And I got concerned, and I called my mom and told my mom, I'm going to put a report out because I haven't heard from him. Have you heard from him? And she goes, no, I haven't heard from him either. So I got concerned, so we decided to put this report out to figure out what happened to him.
So let me just play these timelines back. September 1st, 2017, you see and talk to Joey, correct?
Yes.
And when is his birthday?
September 9th.
September 9th. And you do not have any communication from the 1st to the 9th, and that's when your concern starts?
Yes.
Okay. So you started saying that you spoke to your mom once your concern starts. You spoke to your mother. Anyone else?
I spoke to my mom and my stepdad and the guy that I was with at the time.
Okay. And then what actions did you take after speaking to them?
I called them and told them I was going to go down to the police station and put a missing report, but they decided they lived up in St. Louis. They were going to come down here to go to the police station with me to give a missing report, to be with me while I was up there. After we went down, they decided we were going to go in a search to try to find him.
So some of your communication with the audio equipment is breaking up. Let me just make sure I understood what you said. You went to the police station, you spoke to them because they're in St. Louis, your family that is, and then after you spoke to the police station, you're going to go on a search. Did I get everything?
Yes.
Okay. What police station did you go to?
Houston.
And what did they assuage your fears, or did they take immediate action?
They said they were going to take immediate action as soon as we got the missing report out.
Okay. But still, you went on a search.
Yes.
Who went on this search with you?
It was me, my mom, my dad, my aunt, and my boyfriend at the time.
And by mom, you mean
Amber
Steinfeld?
Amber Steinfeld,
And your father,
Joseph Steinfeld,
Senior.
Senior, and then Debbie Steinfeld.
Okay. And where do you go searching for him? Do you go to Malberg Road residence?
We decided that the first thing we done was we made flyers and put them around and see if anybody had seen him. And started going to places like, have you heard of him? Here's a picture of him. Have you seen him? Have you heard of him? Has anything going on? And we didn't get nothing from that. So me, Amber, and Joe decided that we were going to go to the house that was in Houston. And that's whenever we were talking to AJ, Briana, and we didn't see Isis.
So, in the Houston address is when you speak to the defendant, correct?
Yes.
You used a different term. What do you know him as?
AJ, I knew him as, I never met him before until that day.
Okay.
So I never even knew. I met Briana whenever I first met him, when Joey came and saw me the first. But I never met AJ until that day that I seen him at his house.
How'd you come to know him as AJ, though? Did he introduce himself that way?
He introduced us to AJ.
Do you recall what day that was that you spoke to the defendant?
No, I do not remember.
After you spoke to him, did you return to law enforcement?
Yes.
And what department did you go to now?
We went back to Houston.
And did they refer you to the sheriff's department?
Yeah, we went to the sheriff's department.
When you spoke to the sheriff's department, did you then make the missing person report?
We made a missing report before that.
Did you text the sheriff's department what you learned?
Yeah, we told them what was going on and things. They said they were going to investigate and see what they can find out.
Is the person you spoke to that you referred to as AJ, is he present in the courtroom today? The defendant in the case, AJ?
I see AJ, yeah.
That's what I'm asking. Is he
Yeah.
present today?
Yeah.
Where is he sitting? Can you identify him?
He's with the blue mask next to the lady with the blonde hair.
Black jacket. Okay. And that's Mr. AJ, Mr. Vrba, you understand this, right? That's the person you spoke to on the steps that day?
I spoke to him and Briana.
And what did he tell you that day when you spoke to him concerning Joey?
He told us that Joey got mad and he was drunk and he stormed off. And we asked him, did he have a phone? And they said they didn't know about a phone. And they didn't know what happened to it. Then we asked Brianna about it, and Brianna said that apparently his phone got smashed. But that's what we got told, that he apparently stormed off being drunk.
How'd you find out what happened to Joey?
I was in Mountain Grove eating whenever they called me into the sheriff's department to tell me what happened.
Have you had a funeral for Joey?
No.
Pass him with the sheriff.
Boswell, when Joey went missing, you reached out to Briana Calderas, correct?
Yes,
And she at that time told you that Joey, you learned that Joey had raped Briana anal-wise.
yes. She told me about it.
I want to go back. Joey previously dated a young lady named Samantha, correct?
Yes,
And Sam and Joey had been together for a couple of years.
yes,
They were kind of off and on.
yes,
And in fact, during that off and on period, that's when some of Joey's mental health issues arose during that time.
yes,
And you met Samantha.
yes, ma'am.
And Joey, in fact, got engaged to Samantha.
Yes, ma'am.
And that was in August of 2017.
Yes, ma'am.
And you learned about that because he posted that on Facebook.
Yes,
And that was approximately in the middle of August.
yes,
By September 1st of that same year, Joey had a new girlfriend.
yes.
And that was Briana Calderas.
Yes, ma'am.
So between sometime in the middle of August, September 1st, Joey ended his engagement with Sam and entered into a relationship with Briana.
Yes,
Joey had dropped out of high school, correct, his sophomore, junior year,
yes, ma'am.
and he eventually moved in with Samantha.
Yes, ma'am.
And were you ever aware that Sam and Joey ever lived with Andrew and Isis?
No, ma'am.
And you didn't know Joey knew Isis?
No, ma'am.
And you didn't know Joey knew Andrew?
No, ma'am.
Joey had been hospitalized multiple times, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
For severe depression,
Yes.
self-harm,
Yes.
suicidal thoughts.
Objection, Your Honor, for relevance in this.
Judge Defendant,
Sustain.
can I argue this, please?
Okay.
Your Honor, this directly goes to some of Andrew's statements that he makes that Joey had quit taking his medication, and this just shows he has a history of this will show that he has a history of not taking his medication.
Objection, it's still irrelevant to this proceeding, Your Honor. The only relevance they're putting in is they're creating this relevance by a story they want to put in. There's been nothing talked about his character. There's been nothing talked about that Joey was a violent person outside of what they've just said in their opening and right here. And the relevance of his medical, which are months prior, have no bearing on this matter, Your Honor.
And your specific question was?
Judge, it talked about his what he was hospitalized for, and it will lead to that he was prescribed medication and that he would go off of his medication at different times.
And this witness will note that he did go off medication?
I have to know that he was off the
Hold on,
medication.
Another question. Sorry.
Judge, they had a conversation where she believed she was under the impression that he was going off of his medication.
Your Honor, it still doesn't go to the relevance in this matter, and it doesn't go to whether she has firsthand knowledge of it, Judge. It's months prior, and it's irrelevant to this proceeding.
But do you think she had a conversation with Joey?
Yes.
Okay, I'll let you get into that conversation.
Okay. So you were aware that Joey was on medication for his depression,
Yes,
and he would at times abruptly go off the medication?
Objection, Your Honor. It's going to be hearsay.
Well, this is, well, you're going to ask a specific question about, did she have a conversation with Joey going off the medication? But your question is much broader than that.
I will say in her deposition, she says that he did go off.
Objection, it's still hearsay.
Right. I thought you were going to ask, did she have a conversation with Joey?
Okay, I will.
Okay.
You had a conversation with Joey about his medication, correct?
we talked about it, yeah.
And he indicated to you that he...
Objection, Your Honor. It's hearsay.
But she's asking if Joey indicated he went off medication.
His out-of-court statements are hearsay.
Okay, overruled.
He actually said he didn't need it. And he actually said he wasn't going to take it anymore.
That's what he told me.
you didn't hear from Joey for a few days, you became concerned.
Yes.
And one of the reasons you were concerned about his mental health.
Yes.
And in fact, there was some indication that Joey at some point said he was going to commit suicide.
Yes.
And you learned that from your mother
Yes.
and also Samantha, his ex-girlfriend.
Yes.
I want to go to the last time that you saw Joey. You last saw him on September 1st.
Yes, ma'am.
You were meeting up with Joey to meet his new girlfriend.
Yes, ma'am.
And his new girlfriend was Briana.
Yes, ma'am.
You were also going to meet Briana's kids.
Yes, ma'am.
And you've never met Briana prior to this meeting.
No, ma'am.
You guys actually met at a park.
Yes, ma'am.
And you felt something was wrong.
Yes, ma'am.
You just had a gut feeling.
Yes.
And Briana was rushing him.
Yes, ma'am.
Briana wanted to leave.
Yes, ma'am.
Briana kept saying, come on, come on.
Yes.
And Joey wasn't acting his normal self.
Yes.
He was nervous.
Yes.
He was shaky. And he didn't tell you why.
No.
He didn't tell you that Briana and him were having issues.
No.
He didn't tell you that there were issues involving anal sex.
Objection, Your Honor, argumentative.
Joey never told you that Briana accused him of raping her.
Objection, Your Honor, argumentative.
Sustained.
You spoke with him later that evening on the phone,
Yes, ma'am.
and you said he said he was at Briana's house,
Yes, ma'am.
and he was actually outside while he was talking to you.
Yes, ma'am.
And Joey says to you, I'm scared.
Yes, ma'am.
And you asked him why he was scared.
Yes, ma'am.
He said he couldn't tell you.
Yes, ma'am.
Joey then tells you, I've got to go back in or I'm going to get yelled at.
Yes, ma'am.
And again, he didn't tell you Briana and him were having issues in that phone call.
Yes, ma'am.
No further questions.
Nothing further by the state, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Okay, you may step down, either keep the shield or throw the shield away, whichever one you want to do. Your next witness?
Your Honor, state call is Joseph Steinfeld Sr. Joe Sr.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes, sir. Okay, you'll put this look right at the back of your head, and if you can take the mask off, you have to put the microphone under the sheet.
To the agent? Well, actually, I'll work closer to see you.
Go ahead. Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Same rules, and I know you just saw this with a face mask. If you can't understand, let me know, okay? Will you state your name, please, sir?
No,
Will you state your name, sir?
Joseph Matthew Steinfeld Sr.,
How many children do you have, sir?
5.
And what are their names?
Joseph Matthew Steinfeld Jr., Ed.
You gotta slow down. I know you're excited, so just
I'm pissed.
take a deep breath.
You said Joseph Steinfeld?
Jr.,
Yes, sir.
then Mr. Boswell, Briana Steinfeld, Sammy Steinfeld, and William Steinfeld.
And let's focus on Joseph Jr., what did you call him?
Junior.
And you called him Junior?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What did everyone else refer to him as?
Joey.
So for you, sir, I'll refer to Joey as Junior, if that works. When was the last time you saw Junior?
Well, it was a while back. He's my son, but I was in a good school when I told him to go to work. I did a good job, you know.
When was the last time you talked to Junior?
Probably July.
Okay. Of 2017?
Yes, sir.
When were you reported that Junior was missing?
The day Ashley, Amber came out and told me that we went down there. She said that nobody could find Joey. And she went to make a missing or welfare check, and then we went down there to make a missing report.
In September of 2017?
Yes, sir.
And when you said there, do you mean Texas County?
Yes.
Okay. And who did you talk to first when you got to Texas County?
We talked to a cop. He took the report, but he didn't put it in the computer.
Okay. And is that a Houston police officer?
I guess that was where the jail is, you know.
Okay. The sheriff's department?
Yes.
And then what did you do?
We just started looking for him.
A search?
Yeah.
Where did you go?
Well, we were right there in town, you know, because it was late when we got down there. And we talked to people coming out of jail, and everybody take our information and put it on, looking for them. Then the next day we went over to AJ's house. AJ, that was by the jail over there.
And AJ, who is AJ?
Guy sitting right there between the girl and the guy, the old man.
Can you identify him? Point him
Yes, sir,
out.
I can.
Point to him.
Right there.
Wearing the black jacket between the
Yeah.
counsel.
I know the mask.
And how did you know his name was AJ?
Because he was the one that did all the talking.
Did he tell you his name was AJ? And what did he tell you? Well, hold on, let me ask this. What did you ask him first?
I asked him if he seen Joey and everything. He said Joey took off. And Joey, he gave me a couple different stories about like, what would I do if I hear somebody being raped or something? And I go, well, I go in there and stop it, and then I call police, you know, and stuff like that. And that's basically it.
He brought up a rape to you?
Yes, sir.
Do you-
Even when I went to report him missing, I didn't ask the sheriff, or something. I went, Dad, can we like Joey? I can't find Joey because if he's in trouble, he's not gonna come to me, you know, I'll drive him to the police station.
So you spoke to AJ, and then you went back to the sheriff's department, correct?
Yep.
What happened when you were leaving, speaking with the defendant? What did he do?
Oh, well, he kept talking, you know, he used to like ramble, but the girls ran out of the house, and I had my kids sitting out there, my other kids were sitting out in the car, and they were texting. There was a lot of texting going on.
Did he say he helped you look for him?
You know, he told me a couple times that he'd come to look for him, shook my hand, hugged me, everything.
Hugged you. He looked you in the eye and hugged you.
Yeah.
Told you you didn't know what happened to Joey.
Yeah, they just helped me look for him.
When did you find out that Joey wasn't coming back?
When the police officer finally came back to work after 5 days of looking for him, walking the streets and everything, and getting around from the cops from going from this police station to that police station and looking for him, and that he was going out there, I guess, burning all the evidence, and that they told us to go home, they're gonna ping Joey's phone, and that they'll go back up to House Springs and they'll get a hold of us. And then we went back home, and I went to the gas station, and they called Amber and told her we had to be down the first thing in the morning. I knew that, and when I pulled up down here, there was no flyers of Joey at the courthouse, or your office is that down there. I could tell, I knew something was wrong.
So in September 21st, give or take, of
I don't know,
2017?
okay, sir, I mean, there's a roller coaster when you're a child.
Have you ever got the remains of Joey?
No,
Have you had his funeral?
no.
That's what it shows.
No questions,
You can step down and either keep the shield or throw it away, it's up to you. You want a break, or you want your next witness?
We can take a brief one, Your Honor. if you would
Let's
like.
take a 5-minute break or so. It's a little bit different, but
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. You may call your next witness.
Garrett Loring.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
You put this on, then you can take your mask off, put the mic underneath the shield. Then you can pick it up. Okay. You ready?
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, could you please state your name
I'm Garrett Loring
and how are you employed?
with the Missouri State Highway Patrol.
And how long have you been employed with the State Highway Patrol?
Just shy of 14 years.
And do you hold a rank?
Sergeant.
Sergeant Loring, what are your duties with the Missouri State Highway Patrol?
I'm a criminal investigator with the Division of Drug and Crime.
And can you kind of describe what your day-to-day activities would be as a criminal investigator?
We investigate homicides, assaults, sex crimes, everything like that.
Do you help counties and local jurisdictions with investigations?
Yes, mostly that's what we do.
And did you become involved in the investigation of a murder of Joey Steinfeld in Texas County back on September 20th of 2017?
I did.
And on that date, were you given a task with respect to a residential out on Malvern Road?
It was to assist with the scene.
And when you say assist with the scene, what was going to be your role?
We were looking through a burn pile for possible bombs.
So you had some basic information about the case,
Correct.
and you went to that location to search basically for human remains.
That's correct.
Can you describe briefly, just in your own words, what you found out there, what was out there at this residence on Malvern Road?
As I recall, there was a burn pile. There was some light fluid in the burn pile, like burn jugs. There was a lawn chair, I think.
Well, let me back you up before we get there. Maybe it was a bad question, but can you describe, like, I believe there were some buildings out there, correct?
Correct. When I pulled in, there was a mobile home kind of on my left. And straight as I pulled in, there's also a house that was sitting there. But the residence I was going to was more on the left side.
The mobile home.
Correct.
Okay. And were there other buildings associated with that mobile home?
I believe there was a small, like a storage shed behind it.
And what about the property around those buildings? Was it farmland, just a yard, or what would you describe it
There
as?
was a yard, and then behind the mobile home was pasture, what I would call pasture.
And when you got there then, and after you had a chance to look at this, you started describing a area that you found some items in, correct?
Correct. Yeah, it was a burn pile that was kind of the area that I was assigned to.
So you found this burn pile, obviously in a little bit charred ground, kind of.
Correct.
And did you begin moving through what was on the ground?
We went through it and eventually got some sifters out and sifted through that burn pile.
And when you say sifters, I'm picturing like, the screen from the door,
That's exactly, yeah.
and you basically shovel some of the material up there and sift through it, see, let the dirt fall through and see if there's any things on top.
Correct.
From that burn pile, how big an area was that burn pile, if you could guesstimate for us?
I would say maybe 10 by 10.
And around the burn pile, were there any items, on the grass by the burn pile?
I would call it a lawn chair, and as I said just before, there was some like Coleman fuel containers, something like that.
And so there's a lawn chair out there, but that's not burnt, is it?
No,
And these Coleman fuel containers, I'm picturing the little square metal cans.
that's right.
What were their condition?
They were burnt.
And going through and sifting through this burn pile, did you find anything you thought was of possible evidentiary value in this case?
I thought what we thought was bones, human bones. Of course, we wasn't sure at the time, but that's what we were looking for.
And when you say human bones, we're not talking like a full leg of an adult. We're talking what?
Just small, very small pieces.
And Did you find anything else in that burn pile?
Not that I recall,
Did you find any clothing you thought might have been burned?
possibly.
Okay. And with respect to these Coleman fuel canisters, were they in the burn pile or nearby?
They were nearby, I believe.
And do you remember what condition they were in?
They were burned as well.
After searching, well, what did you do with those bone pieces you found and some of the charred clothing you think you may have found? What did you do with those items?
We collected those and turned them over to Texas County.
And Robbie Douglas was the officer?
Yes,
So you basically dealt with him, packaged them up, and then he seized those.
that's correct.
Were there other areas out there that Mulberg residents that you also searched?
The small building that I referred to a moment ago, that was searched and I was there. I didn't necessarily search it, but I was present.
And you weren't involved in the search of the trailer?
No,
Okay, in the small building, you didn't involve in the search, but you were there when certain items were found, correct?
correct.
Can you describe what was found in the small building that was on the property with the trailer and the burn pile?
Appeared to be small bones, maybe some clothing.
And how were those items found, or what were they located in?
They were in a trash bag, I believe.
So inside this trash bag, you found what you thought were maybe some burned clothing and some bones that were maybe associated with this crime.
Yes,
Again, were those items also between you and Robbie Douglas handled by Robbie and packaged up and seized?
yes.
Did you draw a diagram while you were out there of these kind of buildings and where these things were located?
I did,
And were pictures taken also?
I believe so.
I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 25 and ask if you can identify what that is.
That would be the diagram that I got.
And then I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 1 and then 16 through 24. And if you take a look at those as a group, I'll have some questions for you. Have you had a chance to look at those?
I had,
State's Exhibit 1, 16 through 24, are those photographs?
they are,
What are they in general photographs of?
the outside of the dwelling. The burn pile, the fence and pasture we discussed.
Basically, they're photographs of the things we already discussed.
Correct.
And they're fair and accurate of what you found?
Yes,
Your Honor, I'd offer State's Exhibit 25, the diagram, and then 1 and 16 through 24, which are the photographs.
No objection. Be admitted.
Your Honor, with your permission, may we go through these?
Sir, they'll show up on your TV also.
Let me see if I can get this.
I don't know why it's,
Judge, I don't know if it matters, but the screen here is not on at all.
well, that one doesn't control what I do.
I didn't know if it had to be powered on or not.
Okay, there you go.
Is your screen on, Paul? There it is.
Right there. You're going to get the screen's not on, but the.
Oh, I see.
That was on earlier.
Yeah. Okay, I'll get it, they turned off, they have a timer on.
First of all, oh, I'm sorry, Jerry, I'm starting to ask a question.
That's odd, it's not good.
Not working.
No, now it's coming. Is it? In a second, I think. Didn't yours come up?
Yep.
Well, Maryland's gone, which is weird.
Sergeant Laurie, and I have State's Exhibit 25 up there. Can you kind of basically narrate, show the judge what we're looking at on this exhibit?
Sure. Maltburg Road is obviously the gravel road to the, would be the south of the mobile home here. That's the residence that we were at, or requested to assist with. And these are just, here's a barbed wire fence, which you'll see in the next photos. Here's a burn pile. This electric pole was my reference point for the entire diagram.
For the measurements?
Correct. That's where I referenced from. And the only thing that could be left off would be the building behind the mobile home. And I believe I left that off simply because I really wasn't necessarily involved in that. I'm not aware, but this was more my focus.
And when the burn pile that square on there, it wasn't square in real life, was it?
Correct. Yes, it was not. No.
But that's where the majority of these items in these photographs that we're going to show came from, correct?
Correct.
The garbage bag with a couple bones and maybe some clothing came from a building that you said was not on this opposite diagram.
Right.
Where would that building have been at if you could just kind of show us?
It would have been roughly right in here somewhere.
Okay.
In that mobile home.
I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 1. Do you recognize what that is?
I do.
And what is that?
That's the mobile home.
And do we see the burn pile on this photograph?
No.
Okay. And why is that?
This is just kind of an initial photo that I didn't take, but it's just not in this photo.
And, but this is that mobile home.
Right.
I'm going to move to State's Exhibit 16 and ask if you recognize what that is.
I do. That's the burn pile.
And with the pointer, could you kind of show us where that burn pile is?
That's the darker spot there. It's kind of outlined with some stakes, I believe.
And are those stakes that you and your other officers utilized in your search?
I'd say so. I don't recall putting them there, but I think we did.
And the buckets, the blue and white bucket, were they part of your efforts or were they found out there?
Part of ours.
Now, that lawn chair that you referenced earlier, that was not something you guys were resting on, that was something that was found on the property.
Correct. That was there.
Basically, somebody sitting there could watch that fire burn.
Right.
And there's a number of red flags in the ground.
Yes.
Again, were those utilized by law enforcement in the process of searching?
They were. That's where we thought we possibly had located bones, so we marked those.
State's Exhibit 17, is that essentially a different view of some of those same items?
It is.
And having a better look, I asked you earlier about the stakes. You see stakes with rope there.
Right.
Does that help you indicate maybe where the square in your diagram came from and why they're there?
Right. That's why I done the diagram that way, because we did actually stake out.
It's been a while since you've
It's been
out there.
Yeah.
State's Exhibit 18, what is that a photograph of?
That's of the burn pile.
And I know it's a little hard to see, but can you see anything, discern anything, if you will, in that photograph?
The cans that I was talking about a moment ago are right there, the 3 lighter fluid cans. And that appears to be some kind of beverage can next to it.
State's Exhibit 19, what is this a photograph of?
So the tarp was used for sifting, so we could locate items if they fell through the sifter. And then the flags are just additional items of interest, we thought.
Little white things that may or may not have been bone.
Correct. Correct.
State's Exhibit, I think I'm on 20. Is that one of those red flags showing one of those white items that may or may not have been bone?
It is.
State's Exhibit 21, is that a close-up of those cans we've talked about a couple times and that beverage?
Yes.
State's Exhibit 22, what is that a photograph of?
Possibly a bone.
Directly from out of that burn pile.
Out of the burn pile, correct.
And then State's Exhibit 23, what are we looking at here?
Trash bags.
And is that the item we talked about coming from that building that wasn't on the diagram?
Yes.
And who is that in the picture? Do you recognize or know who that is?
I'm not certain who that is.
But it's one of the sheriff's deputies.
Correct.
And they're holding that bag.
Right.
And what was inside that bag?
That was items, bones and the clothing we felt was pertinent to the investigation.
And State's Exhibit 24, is that right? State's Exhibit 24, is that a photograph of what somebody's holding something that was within that bag?
Yes.
And whoever hand that is, what does it appear to be holding to you from what you remember seeing that day?
Appears to be a bone.
Your Honor, I don't have any other questions for Sergeant Warren.
Sergeant, how are you?
Good, sir. You?
I know you can't see me, but we met before at your deposition.
Yeah.
And I think you told me at that time, although you've been 14 years on the patrol now, you had been a criminal investigator with the Division of Crime and Drug Control for just a couple of days, right?
That's correct. I left the 3rd, possibly that month.
Yeah, started September, early September 2017.
Right.
And in fact, you had a supervisor out there with you, Terry Roddy, a sergeant with the Highway Patrol.
Right, she was there.
You were not the only Missouri State Highway Patrol officer assisting the Texas County Sheriff's Department, were you?
No, I was not.
Okay. But you were the guy that did the crime scene diagram.
I assisted. Yeah, I did the diagram, yes.
Could we pull that up, please, Kevin, number 25? Thank you. What? I should have brought my little pointer.
He's got it.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's okay. I don't need it.
I got another one.
I got one in my bag. I just forgot about it. Now, hold on just a second. Thank
Still
you.
works.
One thing I noticed, in the flags, I'll get the pictures of the flags in a minute, but these bones are scattered quite a ways around this burn pile, weren't they?
Right.
As you demonstrated, there were bones found more than 25 feet from the burn pile. I guess this would be going southwest, right?
Correct.
And then over here, northeast, that's more than 25 feet too, right?
Correct.
And the picture with the flag, let's see, how about number 16, please? Yeah, that's a far away picture. That was most of the red flags in it, doesn't it?
A majority of them, yes.
Okay, and every one of those red flags purportedly may have been a piece of bone, which you thought might have been a bone, right?
Correct.
You also found teeth out there.
Correct.
You noted that in your report. You personally saw teeth on the ground of what you thought were teeth.
What I thought were, yes.
Right. Now, the bag, could I have 23, please, Kevin? You didn't find this bag.
No.
No. In fact, by the time you got there, hadn't this bag already been recovered?
I'm not sure on the timing.
Or
If they found it or not.
did the Texas County Sheriff's Department make you aware that they had very specific information about exactly where that bag would be located?
I don't recall that.
You don't recall that? Okay.
I just know it was located in the building that we discussed.
Let me ask you, by the time you got out to the scene that afternoon, Texas County Police, Sheriff's deputies are already out there, weren't they?
Yes.
And they're already started the investigation.
Correct.
All right. And did anybody make you aware that the reason they were there is because they had already talked to one of the suspects in the case?
No, I knew they had suspects in custody, but I don't know what they had discussed.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And so you don't know how they found that bag, what information they got to find the bag or anything like that?
That's correct.
Okay. But what you did do is, apparently you were there when they at least took pictures of the bag and saw some of the bones?
Right.
Gotcha. Well, could we have a exhibit 21, please? Yeah, did you look to see if that was a soda can, Sergeant?
I did not.
You don't, okay, you don't know what that is.
No.
But the other ones, they look like fuel cans, don't they?
They do.
All right, well, aren't you the officer that recovered the Walmart receipt from the Walmart in Mountain Grove?
Correct.
Okay. You guys have this, or you don't use Oh, I see, okay.
You're welcome.
Well, just,
We're gonna put it in now.
right, okay. Well, let me just ask you, the prosecutors are gonna put this exhibit in later, it doesn't really matter when it comes in, but you went out to the Walmart, in Mountain Grove
Yes, sir.
to see if you could look at some video footage, recover some video footage.
Yes.
Did you have at that time information that there was potentially a purchase made at the Mountain Grove Walmart that was relevant to the case?
I did.
Okay. And did you, at the time when you were out there at the Mountain Grove Walmart, recover a receipt or any type of information that tell you what was purchased?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And do you remember there were gas and fuel containers purchased allegedly at the Walmart in the early morning hours of September the 3rd?
Yes, sir.
All right. You don't get it to show. You guys can put it in as well.
We
Right.
were gonna use the one that's found as a trailer.
You have it, I'll use it if you want me to use yours. If you have it marked. Otherwise, I'll mark
I
this.
gotta dig it out.
Oh, never mind, I'll just do it. Yep.
It's here.
You find yours?
Well, this one was from the trailer.
Oh,
I mean, if you want the one that you got.
I'm gonna get the one. Okay, I see. I see what you're saying.
Do we get the four?
I approach the witness, Your Honor. I hand you, sir, what's been previously marked as Exhibit 400. Do you recognize that receipt?
I do.
Okay. Could you identify that for the court, please?
It's a Walmart receipt.
From the Mountain Grove Walmart?
Yes.
Okay. And so, is this a fair and accurate copy? Obviously, that's not the original receipt. Is that a fair and accurate copy of the Walmart receipt that you recovered as a result of your investigation at the Walmart in
Yes,
this
sir.
case?
Exactly.
I'll offer defendant's exhibit 400.
No objection. You admit it?
So that receipt, as you can see, Sergeant, specifically lists in order. First, fire starter. You see that?
I do.
$4.97. And then 2 canisters of camp fuel. I think that's quart, QT at the beginning. Would you agree?
I agree.
Okay. Now, were you aware there was at least one other Walmart receipt recovered? Did you have anything to do with that?
I don't know, sir. But
Houston Walmart?
no, I didn't have anything to do with that.
You were just the Walmart guy for Mountain Grove.
That's right.
Okay. The one last thing, you see down there, the last item. Can you read that to the court?
The ear loop mask.
Ear loop mask, yeah, $2.97. While you were at the Walmart, did you have a chance to see what that looked like?
I believe, I took photos of those items, but I'm thinking that maybe they didn't have one of them. I'm not sure which.
All right. Were the ear loop masks similar to what all of us are wearing here?
I believe so.
Okay. Did you ever see any dogs out there at the property when you were that afternoon?
I don't recall any dogs.
You didn't see any? Okay. And you didn't have any information about any dogs?
No.
Thank you, Sergeant. That's all I had.
I think.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Step down and keep the field or throw it away. Just throw it away.
379. I started
Next witness.
Mary Lassiter. It is number 26.
You should affirm that the testimony that you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. With that on our entry, as we make the call, just put the microphone underneath.
Good afternoon, or morning still, I guess. Could you please state your name?
Marie Lassiter,
And how are you employed, Ms. Lassiter?
Texas County Government as the coroner.
And what are the duties of the coroner?
My main duty is to determine cause and manner of death in coroner cases.
And how is it you do that? I mean, do you do that by yourself or with the assistance of others?
I'm the only one in my department, so by myself.
Well, you rely on law enforcement and their investigations and medical professionals.
I collaborate with the, if there's a physician involved and with law enforcement, whichever jurisdiction.
And it's one of those cases involved the disappearance of Joseph Steinfeld Jr.
Yes,
And when was it you first became involved in that case?
I'm pretty sure it was September 20th.
And did you respond to the scene out on Mulberg Road?
Yes, I did.
And ultimately, when law enforcement was done, were some human remains or items believed to be human remains turned over to you?
Yes.
Did you make arrangements to send those to, I think, some anthropologists down in Texas, the state of Texas, not Texas County, to determine certain things about those remains?
Initially, I took them to a forensic anthropologist in Ozark County here in Missouri.
But ultimately, they went down to Texas, correct?
No, they didn't. I had plans to do that. But it was determined the Sheriff's Department preferred to send them to the FBI for further analysis and the mitochondrial DNA.
Okay, and that's what I was going to ask you about next.
Yes.
But ultimately, those were sent to, you turned them back over to law enforcement,
Yes,
and it's your understanding that they were sent to the FBI.
that is correct.
In order to determine who those human remains belong to, you went to the parents of Joseph Steinfeld, did you not?
Yes, I did.
And for what purpose did you go to get evidence from them?
To obtain DNA exemplars in order to do the mitochondrial DNA testing.
Basically, since you went to each parent to get their DNA.
Yes, I did.
And how is it that you did that or went about that? How did you get their DNA?
Well, I traveled to the residence in House Springs, Missouri, and I took buccal swabs from both Amber and Joseph Sr.
And can you describe what a buccal swab is briefly?
It's a kind of a long-handled cotton tip swab, and I swabbed the inside of their cheek and then secured it in a paper envelope and put an envelope with labeled and everything for submission to the testing facility.
So basically, you did that with respect to Amber, and you did a separate buccal swab with respect to Joseph Sr.
That's correct.
And they were both packaged separately,
Yes.
and then they were turned over to Rodney Douglas? Or they were
Yeah.
turned over to the Texas Sheriff's Department?
Best of my recollection, I gave them directly to Rowdy Douglas at the time when he was getting everything ready to send off to the FBI.
Now, eventually also, you filled out what we call a certificate of death in this case, did you not?
Yes, I did.
And what is the certificate of death?
Basically, like I said, it has the cause and manner of death.
And in this case, it relates to Joseph Jr.
Yes.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 26, and it's part of it on the back.
Okay.
If you can identify what that is for us.
This is the death certificate that I completed for Joseph Matthew Steinfeld Jr.
Your Honor, I'd offer State's Exhibit 26.
No objection. Be admitted.
And I don't have any other questions for Ms. Lassiter.
I have no questions for Ms. Lassiter.
That they on?
I'll get that to you. Unless there's, since you need that as an exhibit up with you, or
You just left it there.
I'll get it.